Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Content Workshop, where we talk about content in depth. I am joined here by Patrick Brouder, who is a videography and video editor for the Cleveland Cavaliers and their 2K team, the CavsLegion. So he has joined us today on the podcast. How are you doing today, Patrick?
Can't complain, Sammy. How about you?
Not too bad, man. It's been a pretty good day. It's been a busy day, but it's been a good one. But I'm glad that we're tidying up the day in like a pretty bow with you, because you're someone I honestly really want to talk to with your background, your experience. But overall, Pat, if it's okay if I call you Pat, just easiest thing to start out with is just your background, a little bit about yourself, as much as you want to share, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, for those of you that don't know, my name is Patrick Brouder, and like Sammy said, I'm the videographer and editor for CavsLegion. We're the 2K team for the Cleveland Cavaliers. But I'm 22 years old. I grew up in Carmel, Indiana. It's a smaller town north of Indianapolis. Um, I have a pretty decent history in the multimedia industry. I've been everywhere from a designer to editor, videographer, photographer. I've kind of done everything in between, just with a very strong gaming background with esports in general. Um, but yeah, we can kind of move forward from that.
Awesome, man. Yeah, I appreciate it. And like he said, when he says background, he's being humble, in my opinion, in the best of ways. Because if you look at Patrick's portfolio, it is extremely wide, from esports to product marketing to regular sports, portraits, weddings, everything. And then the esports side of things. I mean, even cover art and concerts. So
Yeah.
you have had your hand in literally everything. And I didn't even realize that until I had done some research. But overall, what made you start to get into video editing? Like, how did that come about exactly?
So, my dad definitely had a really big influence on getting an interest overall in media.
Okay.
So he's worked in television, and not as much of an anchor or like an online and in person or on air personality, but more of a behind the scenes creative services background.
Mm-hmm.
So he's worked for news stations between Fox, NBC, a bunch of different local stations here and there growing up. So being able to go to his office anytime I had the chance to, and just kind of see the studio area and just get that overall, just media in general, just
Mm-hmm.
getting that background was really enticing to me,
Mm-hmm.
and I just found a really cool interest. But I would say videography and photography. Specifically, my dad had a camera growing up, just a regular DSLR, just some crappy little camera.
Okay.
But anytime we had family over, we just had family gatherings. He was always out with a camera, just taking a couple pictures here and there. And honestly, a lot of people come from the mindset of a very like artistic eye. They're just they really want to get creative with photography,
Mm-hmm.
but what my favorite part about it is the fact that you can kind of capture a moment and recap an event or a feeling or an emotion and kind of have that be an endless feeling that you can always look back on. So that
Mm-hmm.
that kind of concept really got me into media.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, and I kind of know what you're saying to a certain extent. So my dad was a music major, so he
Okay.
majored in music. And how you said like capturing a moment in a picture, or like in a video, like the same thing with me with music. Like when you hear a certain musical sound, or you like look at a picture, or you look at a video, like it immediately takes you back to that moment, and like you just can expound upon it in your own head. So I totally know what you mean. And being exposed to it early probably gave you like a deep rooted passion to it, more so than anybody else that
Definitely.
just looked to it for a profession.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm definitely in a good position. My dad set me up very well for being exposed at a young age.
Awesome. And I mean, now I didn't even know this because we didn't talk about it before the podcast, but and I know, did he ever, because I know my dad with music, right? Like it was like, yes, I love to do it and I still play music to this day, but at the same time, it was like, you will learn an instrument. You know what I mean? It was kind of,
Yeah.
so did your dad ever have that on you where it was like, hey, man, I want you to learn this? Or was it totally like on your own? Like that he was just like, you can do what you want type thing?
Yeah. Funny enough, my dad actually steered me away from getting into the TV and media
Oh,
industry.
wow. Okay.
So growing up, I never like directly showed interest in being like, I want to do what my dad does.
Mm-hmm.
But he was always like, man, like if you can find something else, like he loves what he does, but
Yeah,
he also knows that there's a lot of sacrifice and time you have to give up,
of course.
more than just a 9 to 5 office job. So it has its inconveniences, but
Mm-hmm.
my family was very big on just family in general and spending quality time together. So he knew that it drew us away from that growing up,
Mm-hmm.
and he wanted to make sure that I was surrounded by family and being able to spend time with that. So, ironically enough, he told me not to get into it, but I decided to be ignorant and go
Not
against
listen.
it.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. That's awesome. I guess it's sort of similar. My dad was like that too. He was like, you can love music, but do not major in music. Please God, don't major. Like he was like totally against it. So
Yeah.
it's interesting how they do that. But that's awesome. So so what was your kind of, I guess, journey of learning it? Was it all self taught, or did you go to college for it, or what was your process of learning that side of the business?
Yeah, so I would say probably like my freshman sophomore year. I kind of have to preface it with the gaming scene and
Mm-hmm.
esports in general was kind of my platform that I was able to get kickstarted with.
Mm-hmm.
So I started off doing graphic design for small sniping teams and trick shotting clans and all that type of stuff back in the
Okay.
day on Call of Duty. So I had a really big background in that, just doing like YouTube headers, just social media designs in general, and they were horrible looking back. But it was just fun at the time.
Yeah.
So I started off doing that, and then I worked for a couple of bigger name teams. But then at some point, I just kind of plateaued, and I started losing interest. I knew I liked what I was doing, but I knew I wouldn't really find a career in that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, just another creative facet that was available was my dad's camera. So that's when I randomly just picked it up and I actually I was working for a company called Esports Nation at the time, which was it was just like an esports news
Okay.
outlet. And I lived fairly close to Columbus, which was where a lot of MLG, Halo, and Call of Duty events were
Oh
held at
yeah.
the time.
Yeah, that was the hub.
So yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
So I was actually sent out with the task of designing on the go, like at the event, but also taking a couple photos for social.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad came with me because he wanted to get a whole look on the esports scene, and he actually set up my camera. I had no clue how to mess with the settings or do
Mm-hmm.
anything, so
Yeah.
he did all the hard work for me. I just went up to the players and started taking photos and clicking the shutter. And once I got one photo of Crim6 that had blown up, like that night, I tweeted it out and it got a lot of good traction.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the moment where once I got a little bit of recognition, even though I didn't really put much effort into it, and
Mm-hmm.
I knew I had fun editing the photo and tweaking all the settings and stuff like that. I think getting that recognition and like, hey, you took a really nice photo. I think that's what kind of sparked my interest in, hey, I have fun doing this. It's a
Mm-hmm.
commodity that teams and people want everywhere, not just in gaming.
Yeah.
So maybe that's another route that I could go down. And I kind of took a whim and went out on that, and it's worked out well.
Yeah, it has worked out well, and it's funny how like it's even more prevalent now because what time, how, like what year was that?
that was that was my like junior year of high school, so probably that was about like 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah, so yeah, like 2013 ish, 14 ish time frame, and
Mm-hmm.
even then, like the difference between now and then, as far as like how you can build your platform on social media, is like night and day.
Oh
And
yeah.
that's the good thing about, I always say about videographers and photographers, like it is hard because it's a saturated market in my opinion, but it's also
Mm-hmm.
like it only takes one good thing sometimes to kind of snowball effect and get you to where you need to go. But
Absolutely.
that's all. What did your dad think of the esports scene as a whole? Like as a whole, like what was his thoughts on it?
So thankfully, he had a pretty open mind going into it,
Mm-hmm.
especially with his broadcast and television background. He kind of knew he really enjoyed like the production side of everything.
Mm-hmm.
So just taking something as simple as just a competitive video game, but then making a whole broadcast and getting a live studio audience in front of it and
Mm-hmm.
engaging fans, he realized like, okay, wow, this is actually like a legitimate business. It's a legitimate community,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not just a bunch of kids playing in their mom's basement.
Yeah, no, yeah, I
So
understand what you're saying.
at that point, he didn't necessarily expect me to get a job out of it, but he realized that it's bigger than what he had originally thought it was, which was very encouraging at the time. Just being able to have his support in gaming in general, because a lot of many, if not all, people struggle with that argument with their parents for sure.
Yeah, like even now, like I have a full time job. I'm not doing it full time yet. I want to eventually once I get done with all the military stuff. But even like explaining to my parents like what it is, like my mom's has a 25-year marketing and like sales background. But even her, like trying to explain to her the business of esports, like I'll put out memes all the time. Like it's so hard to get people to just understand it conceptually. Like it's very difficult. So it's nice that your dad, helped you out with that and was like open minded about that because you don't hear that a lot, to be honest, when it comes to
Yeah,
parents
no,
and stuff like that.
definitely.
Um, so that was 2013, 14 time frame ish, maybe 2015. So what you said the picture kind of took traction. So what was your I guess journey from there? Like how it in short, how did you get from there to where you are now? Like what was your process?
Yeah. So long story short, to answer your question earlier too, I 100% self-taught. I
Mm-hmm.
basically just took YouTube tutorials and the power of the internet to
Mm-hmm.
kind of get whatever information I could. And I would take, say I just saw an image or a video or something like that that I really liked, I would just immediately go on YouTube, look up. I would try to come up with the best names to describe that effect or whatever it may have been,
Mm-hmm.
and just look for a tutorial and figure out how to manually do it myself, and
Okay.
just try to make it muscle memory using the different programs. So yeah, I would say I learned a lot of Photoshop, and I mean, I started off editing videos in iMovie and stuff like that,
Yeah.
but eventually moved my way up to the Adobe platforms using Premiere Pro now.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, man, so YouTube tutorials brought me a hell of a long way. I went to school at Ball State University for 1 year. I was majoring in journalism graphic design.
Okay.
I ended up not going back after my first year. School just wasn't my thing. It wasn't the right timing for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and thankfully, I took that time off school because that, I would say, after 2 years of working freelance, doing wedding videography and concert recaps, I shot for a bunch of different big name artists, just getting random media passes, trying to get my brand out there and
Mm-hmm.
trying to find the right team or the right person to work with or under. And thankfully, being the right person at the right time. I got in touch with Helena and Anthony, who's not here at the Legion anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But I got in touch with them, and they just so happened to like my work. And I came in to interview. And about a month and a half later, I heard back from them. They're like, "When's the soonest you can move up?" And thankfully,
Yeah.
I wasn't in school, so I had the ability to move up like the same week. So
Oh
it
wow.
all happened really quickly once I went into that interview. But it's been nothing but a great time since, honestly.
That's awesome, and I have to say, doing the weddings, doing like the Ball State stuff because I have seen it in your portfolio and stuff like that. Doing the
Mhm.
concerts, maybe you can speak to this more, but to me, it feels like that would help you develop kind of the fundamental side of things because you're doing it on your own, you're having no guidance or direction, having
Yeah.
someone who's self-taught, like just the stuff that like the intangible side of things that normally you'd have to teach somebody, like
Mhm.
you don't require as much direction or as much supervision from a person who maybe was just fully college educated because like there's nothing wrong with college, and I ask this a
Yeah.
lot of people on because a lot of people I'm having on this podcast are designers, video editors, people like Helena,
Yeah.
people that in this industry you don't really need an education technically, but at the same
Yeah.
time, like, so I always ask people like, do you think education is worth it? And one thing I will say about education that can hinder you a little bit is you don't get that experience like that you got as far as like doing it on your own. So just that
Absolutely.
intangible side of things is really important.
Absolutely, yeah. And
Mm-hmm.
I would say, I mean, if you talked to me 3 or 4 years ago when I had first stopped going to school, I
Mm-hmm.
would have told you that college was the dumbest thing in the world. It's pointless for anybody. School's a scam, like yada yada yada. But
Mm-hmm.
looking back on it, if school is the right thing for you at that time, like if you, school is a great tool for some people,
Mm-hmm.
but I think for a lot of creators and people that work in media in general, just going out and doing the work itself. I'm a big fan of just learning from experience and
Mm.
trial and error. So I trust me, there are plenty of concerts that I shot where I didn't get good photos, where I didn't get good video, whatever it may have been. But
Mm-hmm.
I significantly learned a lot more from that than just getting a grade in class. So
Yep.
looking at school now, I would like going back to get a management degree to be able to lead a content team. Like school has its time and place, and I'm never going to say that I'm not going back to school ever again,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
it's for the, I mean, it all depends on what type of learning you need at that time, but it can offer a lot.
Yeah, and I'm not by any means like discounting school either. Like I'm right now, I'm in my last semester, second to last semester, digital marketing and advertising degree. So like same thing. You kind
Yeah.
of want to play both sides, but it's just interesting from people like you and your lane where you can do everything self-taught. Like my friend Dylan that did as well. He's a video editor. He's like YouTube University is the best university in the world, which
Yep.
is true,
Very
especially
true.
nowadays. And I think this is getting more conceptual, but I think like our generation has a lot more options when it comes to learning stuff. Like I always use the Goodwill Hunting reference. Like 50 years ago, yes, school was like probably the best way to do most things, like most jobs,
Absolutely.
if you didn't do like a factory worker type job. But
Yeah,
nowadays, like because of the internet, because of technology, like if it's not a super technical profession, you can pretty much learn it on your own if you have the drive and like the resources to do so.
absolutely.
So it's definitely more difficult for people coming up to try to choose their path and their lane on where to go and things like that.
Yeah.
Um, but overall, I guess going into the Cavs now, without getting too into the weeds, 'cause I'm sure you guys have your own like campaigns that you're not gonna like publicize 100%. But what is overall Cleveland Cavaliers philosophy and your Cavs leading philosophy and your philosophy on content creation and how you guys approach it? Like, what is the best way you guys do that?
Absolutely. So I would say one thing I'm really grateful for is we have a small staff at Legion, and a lot
Mm-hmm.
of 2K teams in general have smaller staffs. We actually have one of the larger ones at 4 to 5 people on our staff that are full time at least. But we understand that a lot of our revenue and a lot of our success comes from one, fan engagement, and two, partnerships. So with partnerships, like one of the easiest ways to kind of make a deliverable for them, other than just in-game signage and stuff like that, is through content.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's a skit, whether it's an advertisement, product promotion, there's many different roads you can go down.
Mm-hmm.
So thankfully, everyone at Legion has a very they like to embrace the content workflow, which is
Mm-hmm.
really nice. And everyone's always, even not only on Legion, but just full-time team members that are with the Cavs and on other franchises with the Cavs,
Mm-hmm.
they're always coming to us with different ideas and they're trying to help out. So it's a very welcoming environment when it comes to content. But I would say my biggest philosophy with content is always try to stay fresh, always try to keep a viewer engaged.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of days, like nowadays, kids' attention spans are not very like you. It's hard to hold someone for an hour versus trying to get information to them within under a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so while people like our generation, like I love listening to podcasts, I always try to learn a lot from that. But kids nowadays are trying to find top 5 video, like just quick, concise recaps of like everything, just condensed and as fast and quick as
No,
possible, so
yeah.
they can just
Mm-hmm.
get it and move on. But I think trying to find a good mix between engaging content that can hold people's attention and just overall entertain them,
Mm-hmm.
but with also having the serving the purpose of making another client happy. So trying to please everyone at the same time while staying above all the other teams is extremely important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And kind of adding on to your point, it's like you have to balance between the what I call like short term marketing and long term marketing. So, like for example, the video you guys put out because I was doing my homework on like what y'all been putting out, like the video you put out of when you guys were giving out the Cavs Legion shirts at the game and like stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. Like to me, that's like a long term plan, right? You're like trying to instill that brand in that 10-year-old kid. So as he's growing up, like he grows up with the brand, right? And you have like
Exactly.
long term kind of hook to the brand, but you also
Mm-hmm.
have to pay attention to the short term, like people who are saying like top 10 highlights of the 2K league or whatever it is, right?
Exactly.
That
Yeah.
that quick type thing. But that's hard to balance because you like what is brand equity versus like what keeps engagement because sometimes those aren't the same and you have
Yeah.
to put out different things. Especially with you guys because the 2K league has, in my opinion, a very I mean this in a good way, like infectious and like really like strong fan base. But it's
Mm.
as far as the esports side, it's not as huge, but it's deeper. But so you're trying to expand that, but at the same time, like keep your own engagement. So it's I feel like you guys have a really like actually like hard job in my opinion when it
Yeah,
comes to
definitely.
esports overall.
Yeah.
Um, hmm
I would say you make a great point in saying that 2K in general is a very strong and a deep-rooted community.
hmm
There are people that are on different teams now that are on coaching staffs, and not only just doing like the digital partnership side of it and the videography, but from coaching and playing. Like some of these guys have been playing for like 11, 12 years, like all the way
hmm
back to just the first 2K that came out. So it's a very tight knit community, but like you said, trying to keep those people that have been there for a long time, trying to keep them happy while also trying to hook new eyes and just get the attention and engagement of uh, of younger families and kids in general. Just
hmm
trying to cast a wide net. It can be definitely tough at times, but I think at the same time that also keeps us on our feet and it keeps us constantly trying to to improve and overall just better our brand. So I
Hmm.
think it's a blessing and a curse all at the same time.
Okay, and one thing I wanted to ask you because I actually couldn't not that I couldn't find this, I just couldn't get a solid answer on it because you see other games like I'll give you an example like Rainbow Six. Rainbow
Hmm.
Six has an extremely good developer uh, team relationship, right? Like the developer is supporting the esports scene, trying to push it. And with
Absolutely.
you guys have a really weird dynamic, not weird, but just interesting dynamic where you have the 2K teams, you have the NBA because the NBA has sanctioned this league, and
Yeah.
you have the developer. So you have
Yeah.
2K League, and the NBA. So has the NBA and 2K like been helping push the league, or is it on your not? It's not a bad thing if they aren't. Are you guys kind of
Yeah.
having to push it yourselves, or how has that dynamic been working so far?
So overall, the NBA has been extremely supportive
Mm-hmm.
of the NBA 2K League.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot. They did a lot to try to lift it off the ground the first 2 years. I
Mm-hmm.
think at this point, uh, the biggest struggle and what most people expect when you have a 2K team working with the actual NBA franchise is that, oh man, so say the Lakers team, say that they wanted to do a video with LeBron.
Mm-hmm.
They actually wouldn't be able to do that. They're having a hard time trying to collaborate between actual franchise players versus the 2K League players because of there's so many different
Oh,
player
understandably, like
contracts,
there's
all the
so many players involved, agents and
oh
contracts,
yeah.
and just simple
Hmm.
time on their hands. Like that's got to be
Yeah.
difficult.
And there's some players that are extremely sorry if you hear a train going on in the
No, you're
background.
good.
We got like 20
It's
seconds,
Cleveland area. You're good.
right?
Yeah.
It's great. But no, there's some players in the NBA that are extremely philanthropic and they just want to help out the organization, help out their brand. And so we have some players that want to do work with us and want to help out
Mm-hmm.
and help grow it because they're just big 2K fans themselves. Like they
Yeah.
grew up playing it.
Mm-hmm.
But then there are other people that could really help our certain teams pop off and get some really good traction to traditional sports viewers.
Mm-hmm.
And they're it's tough because at that point then you need to pay them X amount of dollars per hour just to even be at your facility or wherever it may be.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
as of now, it's they're trying to find a good way to even further the collaboration between the NBA and the developer
Mm-hmm.
because there's a very large amount of untapped potential that could help the league grow
Mm-hmm.
substantially, and then also bring a lot of young eyes to the NBA as well, not just with video games, but on the traditional side too.
Yep, and the player base is insane with 2K. Like it's similar to Call of Duty, where like the amount of people that play NBA 2K is unreal.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that helps. And I think one thing, this is kind of half content, half not, but I think one thing that's a challenge for any esport right now that's kind of on y'all's level where it's franchised is how do you like from a content perspective, how do you get the viewer to watch it? Because like I think our generation and like the generation after us isn't going to want to go to a stadium and pay $100 a ticket to watch the game. Like I had a conversation with my friend Anthony about this about the Call of Duty League. Like me personally, I love Call of Duty, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
not going to pay $100 to go watch one Call of Duty match at the stadium. I'm just going to watch it
Nope,
on Twitch. Like it's
absolutely.
where I can watch my favorite player if they have the option to, or I can just switch. Like you know what I mean.
Yeah,
So I think that's a challenge for every league, also, especially for you guys, is because it's a 2K stadium, like it's a virtual stadium. But like, do you do the VR route? Do you do the stadium route? Do you do the Twitch
yeah.
route? Like, there's so many like challenges y'all have to face from a content perspective for the viewers. I feel like.
Yeah, it's definitely challenging at times.
Mm-hmm.
I think the one of the best ways that we found a good approach to trying to solve that answer is really making sure our fans are connected to our players
Mm-hmm.
and having them as individual brands of their own. Because I don't know about you, but at least for me, if I was someone that's not endemic, not within the esports community, but if I found someone that I thought was a cool personality or that I thought was really funny or I thought was a good player,
Mm-hmm.
I would be much more likely to follow one specific person because it's a lot easier to interact with them. They're an actual person, not just a big brand that could just kind of not care and like throw you under the rug and just consider you a fan.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, you see all these COD players now, they're streaming on Twitch, they're getting their own fan bases. And now, because of that, you have all these people watching their main streams and going to these events to support their favorite players and support their favorite
Mm-hmm.
teams. So I think we kind of took a realistic approach where we understand that not everyone is going to just see Cavs Legion and be like, oh, I like video games, therefore I'm a Legion fan.
Yeah, it's not how it works.
We have to make a personal impact on them, hopefully through the entertainment of our players or through one of our partners that they can connect with. So that's kind of our view on it. But I would say that's definitely a harder problem for a lot of content creators and brands in general that are in new franchise leagues, especially in esports.
Yeah, exactly. And from a video editor and like videography and storyteller perspective, like how you have to shape that, you know what I mean? Because you yourself, like I'm the same way where I want to put out a certain product that I feel is good and I feel is quality and I feel like is what I want to say. But at the same time, you're having to like balance of like, what does the consumer want? And, you know, where do we want to take our brand? What, like, there's so many things you have to juggle as a video editor. Like, I personally have a lot of respect for video editors and storytellers because I feel like I'm good at the management side of things. Like, I feel like I can manage a content team, but as far as like the creative side of it, like, I feel like there's an intangible that you guys have to do that not everybody has, and it's very difficult when you have all the players you guys have.
Yeah, definitely. I would say it's definitely tough, and especially like not to be like woe is me, but it's definitely tough. Like you see the Robert Rogers, the O Roger, not so Chris. Like you see a bunch of really strong groups of creators that like if you look at the Team Liquid content team or the Optic Gaming content team, like they have a really strong group of like 4 to 5 really talented creators, both
Mm-hmm.
on the video, storyboarding, like from every aspect of storytelling.
Yeah.
At Legion, it's only me. And while we have a lot of people that have their hands in kind of ideation and coming up with different ideas and videos and fun stuff we could do around the city with the guys, but actually trying to to build a brand and create an identity and one that people want to flock around and try to get behind.
Mm-hmm.
It can definitely be challenging, especially with as kind of a one man team. But thankfully, we're really blessed to have a good creative team that helps us a lot with graphics in general, just for social media.
Mm-hmm.
But they're all esports endemic people. They come from different scenes. Some are like designers for Elevate Gaming and stuff like that. Like we have a nice mix of people. So thankfully, I'm not the only one with the ideation.
Yeah.
So it's definitely helpful at times. But yeah, man, that's one of the hardest parts about our job is trying to excuse me, trying to just stay fresh and just stay on top of being the best for content creation. And by no means am I the best. I have a lot of learning and room to grow, but
Mm-hmm.
that's definitely the goal for all of us.
Yeah, exactly. And the creative side of things, on top of just the logistics side of things, like getting everybody at the facility at one time, like, you know,
Oh,
that right there is half the work. Like I'm telling you right now, just this podcast, like me and you, it was pretty quick, but overall, like, and it's not their fault. Like it's just how life works. Like
yeah,
getting people to set a time and like be there, and then you have people that get sick, like Helena, like stuff like that. Little stuff, unforeseen stuff happens like that.
yeah, man,
That right there can take up a quarter of your day, and then you have
absolutely.
the actual act of what you're doing. So that's another quarter of your day. So like long story short, like you take up 12 hours of your day just with the logistics and the act of it, and then on top of that you're doing all the plan and prep work and the storyboard and the storytelling like you're talking about. I don't think people realize with designers and video editors, I don't think people actually understand the man hours it takes to put out that type of stuff, to be completely honest.
Yeah, definitely. I would say the whole content creation process as a whole, like you said, is definitely undervalued.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people just assume that if they can give you some clips and like here's sort of what I want to do, like bam, you can bang it out for me in a day.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's you if you want to make a good video, it takes a day or two of planning, coming up with something that you know that a fan will like it. They can connect with something. So you have
Mm-hmm.
to make a video that's relevant. You have to then set up your studio or set up the area you're filming, which takes another hour or two
Mm-hmm.
out of your day. And like you said, like we have 6 players that usually we need all of them whenever we're filming content.
Yeah.
Um, and they're we can't tell them when to go to bed. We can't tell them when to do anything like that.
Yeah,
They're
the
grown
typical
men.
esports player, there's those challenges with
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
they're grown players. So we have players staying up till 4 or 5 in the morning streaming, which is great. We love it. But then they're showing up to a 9 a.m. shoot, either looking like a zombie or not getting to the shoot until noon,
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
you have to delay all that stuff. So there's so much that goes into it, and then you add in the post production and getting approval and all that stuff like that, and trying to make 10 different people happy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's definitely a process that people don't usually think that it takes as long as it does.
Yep, I agree. And the last thing I'll say before we move to the other thing is, I think like 10 years ago, like so now there's the whole discussion of quality versus quantity and like how you balance that. Because I
Yeah,
think 10 years ago, like yeah, you could take a long time to do a high production like advertisement or commercial, and it worked like because it wasn't saturated. Whereas nowadays, like you could spend 3 weeks doing this amazing docu series type video, and
yeah,
then only like 5% of your audience sees it just because that's just how the internet is. Like I don't care how good your content is, unless you have this amazing reach marketing wise. Like I could just not see it. Like for me, like perfect example for me is Gary Vee, who's a really popular entrepreneur. Right, he puts out a crap ton of content.
oh yeah,
Like I call. I'm like telling on myself a little bit, like put myself on blast. I had never heard of the dude until like a year ago, and this
yeah,
guy's huge. And it's not because I don't research that stuff. It's literally just because of timing. So
yeah,
like how often do you put out content? Like how high quality, how much time do you want to spend on your content? How like that balance of quality versus putting out content as a whole and like getting it out there for the consumer to see
oh yeah,
is really difficult. Because me personally, like if it brings value to the consumer, then it's quality. Like I don't like this right now. I'm not doing a whole lot of editing, but if someone gets something out of it, then to them it's quality. But
absolutely.
you also have your own perfection and your inner like OCD of like I want this to be perfect. So it's
Definitely.
definitely
Yeah,
difficult.
that's been one thing that I've found myself struggling with the most, coming from kind of doing my own editorial work back in Indianapolis when I was first starting off, before like I had made it to the Cavs and like actually been with a an official team.
Mm-hmm.
um, I felt like it was all my own creative freedom, and then trying to cater to specific people then at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And I found myself trying to make every video I was doing, like trying to make it a motion picture, like a Steven Spielberg film,
Yeah.
but not everything. And it's tough because you don't want to sacrifice quality, but it's a weird fine line that you have to try to mix between just getting a video out there that's good, but then also not spending too much time on it, because then it becomes less relevant. People won't care eventually.
Yep.
So you have to find that good mix between quality and getting it out on time.
Yeah,
So
an 80% solution on time is better than a 100% solution that's late. Like
absolutely.
every day of the week. But yeah, as you're going as we're talking about the Cavs Legion and stuff, I noticed you're seeing a new facility. How is that? Because I watched the news broadcast where they kind of went through and walked through the new facility in Cleveland. So tell me about that and how that has helped y'all out from a content perspective and what y'all have been able to do with the new facility as a whole. Because it's pretty state of the art, at least it looks like to me.
Yeah, man. We've put a lot of time and effort into getting this facility off the ground.
Mm-hmm.
We spent about a year and a half of just prepping it. Just we still have boxes in the other room, just we still haven't been able to take out. We got like 26 different complete computer setups here.
Jeez.
It's just a lot of hardware. But going from being season one, we were based out of an apartment building, and I
Mm-hmm.
like it was a two-bedroom apartment. It was a really nice space, but it was a two-bedroom apartment. One bedroom was our content studio.
Mm-hmm.
The other bedroom was mine. So I lived at that facility, and then the living room and kitchen was the practice facility. So we had all the guys living in one area in one building,
Mm-hmm.
and it was really cramped and really tight. We made it work. Like we DIY'd the hell out of it.
Oh yeah.
But uh, going from a very humble beginning of that to getting a whole full-fledged facility, with streaming pods, content studio, a full-on stage. It's been an internal opportunity that none of us could have ever imagined.
Mm-hmm.
Just having the ability to come in here at any point in the day and either start gaming, start streaming, do a photo shoot, do a video shoot, a podcast, like having that access has made our plan for content creation going into season three tremendously easier, and a little bit more enjoyable too, just being able to have these resources now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I mean, on a more community based aspect, just being able to get people in the doors now and being able to show them like this is what Legion is, this is
Mm-hmm.
what we're about. I think that's a huge win for us, and that's probably one of my biggest, or my one of the more favorite things about the facility, in my opinion, is the fact that we can bring someone that may not know a thing about esports in, or whether it's content creation or streaming, any aspect of it, and bringing him in here and being able to to show the legitimacy, and then also just maybe get a new fan out of that, or someone that's just more interested in gaming. Like that's a win in my books, rather than just being like, oh yeah, man, like we got this cool facility. That's about it, and then just trying to flex it. But like getting the community engaged, getting people in here, and then just spreading the news is about esports in general. Because, I mean, I'm sure you've come from the gaming background as well. I
Yeah.
thought you met with Helena and Panda
Hmm.
back in those days. So obviously you've been around for a while, but uh, it sucks to see that people are just now bandwagoning on the esports scene. But at the same time, like that's been our goal this whole time, is trying to make esports a huge business and a
Hmm.
huge platform for people to enjoy gaming from anywhere at any time. So
Yeah,
being
exactly.
able to have that opportunity to share and use that experience is amazing.
Yeah, that I mean that I was super excited when I saw the video about the facility because like I think of like the esports arena concept where like, and my hope is like 25 years from now instead. I mean I played sports all through high school, but instead of like people going to the Dell to play basketball, they're going to esports arena or the Cavs facility to like, play the weekend tournament that the Cavs are hosting or whatever it is, and that's
Absolutely.
just gonna generate like people see something tangible. And I think from the parents' perspective, I think the next generation won't have as big of an issue with trying to convince parents because their parents will have grown up in it.
Yeah.
However, um, I don't have kids, but when I do have kids with my wife, like if I saw something tangible, like I'd be like, okay, like I can support this a little bit more so than just my kid telling me he's watching some
Absolutely.
kid on the internet play basketball.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely agree with that. That it helps for the fan base and for the facility. It probably makes it a lot easier for you from a logistics standpoint to do what you need to do on a daily basis within that facility.
Absolutely.
Um, the apartments thing is funny because I remember when Helena first got hired on the Cavs because I was like talking to her the whole thing, like just getting updates, like because I was super
Yeah.
excited for her. She was like, "Yeah, we're staying in these." Like she was telling me the apartment. She's like, "It's a lot of work. We're gonna have to like build it up," but like she was like geeking out for a minute. She's like, "Holy crap, dude! They're like putting us all up in these apartments." And I was like, "How are they?" She's like, "It's gonna take some work, but hey, it's like it's better than nothing." Like to be completely honest. So
Honestly.
I remember she was like super excited about that. But I know that overall, like the facility is awesome. Like what future? Because obviously, facility is a big step forward. But what future goals do you guys have from a content standpoint? I guess conceptually at the Cavs Legion, like what are you looking forward to do as the years progress?
Definitely. I would say one of my biggest things is kind of like we touched on earlier, combining the actual NBA teams and players
Mm-hmm.
with the esports side.
Okay.
I think one of the biggest things that, and I know we're trying to work on it, but getting a professional player in here from whatever sports team, whether it's the Indians, the Browns, or hopefully the Cavs one day,
Mm-hmm.
but then just being able to collaborate with different entities and different big name people, not necessarily for the clout, but then again, just for the growth of esports and
Yeah.
just having the opportunity to work with certain players and certain people would be a huge win for gaming and just Legion in general. I know we're definitely looking forward to. I know our media week is coming up for season 3, so we're flying out our designers from. We have one coming from Louisiana. We have one coming from. I don't even know where he's from, but we're getting people in here now that we're able to like actually start making content that people would want to watch. And similar, like you said, you have designers coming on, you have just designers, video editors, people coming from a partnership side of things, and
Mm-hmm.
just content creation and management. But kind of bringing every aspect of a creative team and being able to now use this space in a creative way to help build our brand and make. We're going to be making a behind the scenes video. We're going to be doing how we came up with our season 3 look and feel, and
Mm-hmm.
our whole slogan and mantra that we're going by this season. Being able to show the behind the scenes and showing the team behind the team. I think we're going to have a lot of opportunity to share the faces behind Cavs Legion, not only with the players but with staff as well. And I think a lot of teams have been trying to do that over the years.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm really excited for us to be able to finally get a jump on that.
Yeah, that'll be amazing. That'll add a not just personality, but it'll add a emotional connection for those viewers and anybody that's like they feel like they're a part of it. You know what I mean? And I hope too that some of the players from traditional sports will back it because like personally, I know Baker Mayfield, Cleveland Browns. He's a
Yeah.
huge gamer. He's
Hmm.
been seen on Twitch with like some high level people. So like hopefully, as esports grows, like these sports people just understand like what it can mean, um,
Absolutely.
and just from a like an inner city Cleveland perspective or any big city, like that's one more outlet that kids can use to like get away from things that maybe they shouldn't be, dealing with. Like just how sports is a great outlet for people,
Mhm.
esports can be a great outlet for people as well. So hopefully, y'all will be able to do that in the future. I think y'all will. The 2K League for me has been growing and growing, and I think it helps out a lot that it does have a lot of the 2K League is easily be able to fuse traditional sports and regular sports because there is scouting, there is a draft, there's a combine. Like, it's
Yeah,
easy for people to identify with it because they're like, holy crap, like they do the same stuff the NBA does. You know what I mean? So seeing people go through that process is really amazing as a whole, to be honest.
definitely. Yeah, and going back to to the whole giving people a healthy and positive outlet,
Mm-hmm.
uh, even if they may not be in the best of situations or community around them or whatever it may be. But we actually just started a few weeks ago. We're working with the city of Cleveland. So, excuse me. We're working with the city of Cleveland to do a 2K Rec League, where we
Okay.
actually have 2K and Rocket League, but we work with a lot of inner city community centers,
Mm-hmm.
and we have anywhere from 15 to 30 kids out here every week, a couple days a week, gaming, playing Rocket League. We have like one of our assistant coaches for 2K. We brought a kid who's a competitive player from Kent State for their Rocket League team.
Oh wow. Okay.
But just getting these kids interested in gaming, and we had a guy come in from the Cleveland Institute of Art who showed them a little bit about game design, just like a simple overview of it, but showing these kids that hey, it's more than just gaming. There are other jobs, there are different facets to gaming more than just the actual. Like, not everyone's going to be a ninja. Um,
No, of course not.
once kids can figure that out, like maybe it's kind of like us, where maybe they are really interested in gaming, but obviously they may not have the skills to compete at a high level, but using their talents and their interests to give back to gaming and to be able to still be in uh, that scene can be extremely helpful, because a lot of people just don't even think that uh, once you get, it's either gaming or nothing. A lot of people just don't realize that there's so many other job opportunities and different outlets to success,
Yep.
more than just gaming.
Yeah, and someone like you, like if someone like you sits down with a kid who's 16 years old and be like, hey man, like if you have a DSLR, just a normal camera, or whatever, you have a camera and you're like willing to put in the time, like this is what you can do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's like similar to this podcast, like having multiple people on, like show out. That's the point of this podcast is showing people how easy it is. Not easy. I don't mean easy in an easy way, but
Yeah.
how capable it is, for you to just go out there and go through these different lanes of videography, design, editing. If you want to be a professional player, like if you feel like you have the skills and the capability to do that, it's more than just gaming now. Like there's so many different avenues you can do, and you don't have to, like we were talking about during the podcast and before it is you don't have to do a 4-year degree in order to do it. You can go do
Yeah.
it on your own, which is very huge. And that kind of goes in. You talk about the younger generation, and I think this is a good point to wrap up on is what advice would you give to like people just starting out in esports, videography, what have you, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
the best way I like to frame this question to everybody on the podcast is like, what would you have wanted to tell Patrick when he was 16 or 18? Like, what would you have wanted him to know if you had 5 minutes to just talk to him?
I would say a couple different things. Short, I'll give you a couple small answers.
Yeah.
I would say one is to stay authentic.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's a lot of it's esports and just anything in general nowadays is very oversaturated in
Mm-hmm.
whatever scene or job or whatever it may be that you're surrounded by. It's extremely oversaturated, and people can look through a fake personality and a fake nice like easily now. It's not hard to get caught. So I would
Mm-hmm.
say if you are genuine and honest in your intentions with whatever you're going down, at least in my case it was media and videography and photography, but I would just say always stay authentic to who you are as a person and have good morals. Second of all, don't focus too much on social media. It's an amazing tool, and you can use it for a lot of good, but it's also easy to get extremely distracted by it and to look too deep into it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just there are kids that are swatting each other because they overreact or they look too far into what other people are saying about them.
Yeah, it's crazy.
The minute that you, I'm not saying don't care what people say, because it's good to take everything with a grain of salt. But
Mm-hmm.
um, don't let other people's opinions drive what you do, or change what you care about.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because there's millions of other people that will support you and will help you in your endeavors. So don't let one or a couple people with negative comments or nothing good to say stop you from doing what you love. And then two, just stay open minded. Things change. I never thought 5 years ago, going into college, I would have never expected myself to be where I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
So stay open minded. Always take new opportunities that can come your way. Um, but yeah, man, if you enjoy something, just pursue it with everything you've got. Um, because I mean, it's easier said than done, but hard work does pay off. If and again, if you're doing it with an authentic background and you really care about what you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
eventually you will become successful in it.
Awesome. Like those are great points, and I hear a lot of the same resonating things of like be open minded, like work hard. Like it's not impossible. Like just if you're passionate about it, continue to do it. And I feel like people just think like, oh, it's easy for you to say like you're where you're at. Like I know that's what I would say if I was just starting
Absolutely.
out.
Yeah.
But I think people don't realize like in today's world how again it's not easy, but how much more accessibility you have to make those things become a reality. Like 20 years ago it was a lot harder. I feel like nowadays with social media, with content, with like self-teaching ways and avenues, like it's just easier to make those dreams come to reality, so to speak. So those are awesome points that um, I'm glad you brought up, because I feel like a lot of people need to hear it that are trying to just start out, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
They
And I
don't.
would say too, I was sorry to interrupt.
No,
I
go
would just
ahead.
say
No.
too, like, not even if you may not find immediate success in whatever you are doing and
Mm-hmm.
whatever's applicable to whoever's listening at this time. But
Mm-hmm.
like I was, not everything's all rainbows and sunshine. Like I'm in a very fun place now, but 2 years ago I was stocking shelves at a grocery store while doing my freelance on the side. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's not going to be esports or nothing. Like I had to do a lot of smaller projects that I didn't enjoy doing. Um, but again, like don't just expect that everything's going to work out right away, because it's tough to see people that are overnight successes, because that does happen often. But it's like winning the lottery, man. Like it's never gonna just
Yeah,
happen
that
to you. You can't bank on it. You genuinely have to plan to work a long time.
yeah, don't use those people as benchmarks of like, am I being successful or not? And you bringing that up, like bringing up another story, just in case someone didn't listen to that podcast. My friend Dylan Hetley, who worked for UMG, and now he literally just goes to 5-star resorts and they pay him to do like videography work. That's all he does.
Yeah,
And like his backstory was he sent out 200 Instagram DMs to, because he used the Gary Vee method, like Instagram DM,
yeah,
like, hey, here's my work, here's what I want to do, like let me come to your resort, whatever. And he said he only had 5 people out of 200 message him back. And the
yep,
reason I bring that up is because it mentions that how you used it is like, if you don't get immediate success, don't just like quit or stop. Because like he could have done 20 DMs, got none back, and we're like, well, this is dumb. I'm not
yeah.
like I'm wasting my time. Whereas
Right.
now, like if he would have stopped, he would never got to do what he did. And same thing with you. Like if you had just like been stocking the shelves and like saying like, this is whatever. Like this is just a hobby. This is never gonna work. Like screw it.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna go back to school or do whatever. Like you want to be in the position you are today.
absolutely.
So that's definitely a big thing to hit. But yeah, overall, man, I mean, I didn't know if there's anything else you wanted to bring up for content. I always like to ask people like if there's anything else they want to bring up, because it might have been something that triggered in your memory during the podcast as a whole.
No, man, I'd say, I mean, we covered a lot, and I would say too, like, if anyone ever has questions, like my DMs are open on Twitter. I'm extremely open. I don't consider myself a personality or too good to talk to anyone, whether they have advice or anything. So
Mm-hmm.
if I didn't answer a question that maybe either you asked, or if somebody else had another question, like, feel free to hit me up on social media.
Yeah, that was the last thing I was gonna say. Is I just everybody is like, what socials do you want to plug? Like as far as YouTube or like just the Cavs or anything like that, where people can follow you at and either reach out to you or just view your content as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely. So my Twitter is at BrouderMedia. It's gonna, I mean, however you put it in the title of the podcast,
Mm-hmm.
it's gonna be that.
Yep.
So at BrouderMedia on Twitter and Instagram. That's pretty much what I mainly use to post just random thoughts on Twitter, but also the work that I do throughout the week, and then also just shouting out CavsLegion,
Mm-hmm.
CavsLegion GC on all socials. if you're into 2K or just gaming in general. We're a fun team to get behind.
Yeah, y'all have some great content. I will vouch for that if anybody wants to watch their stuff. Yeah, if you're watching this on YouTube, I'll have all his, just for essay, I'll have all these his socials linked in below, as well as all the Cavs Legion socials. If you're listening to this on Spotify, like you said, BrouderMedia, it'll be in the title of the Spotify link as a whole. And then you can also come to my Twitter at Samajama TV, and I'll also be promoting him as well at the time that this goes live. But yeah, Patrick, I appreciate you, man, coming and talk to us. I think it's really good insight for anybody that's getting into videography, esports, just, or just trying to pursue whatever it is they're passionate about in general, because I think you're a really good example of someone who your life can change really quickly if you put in the time and the work overall.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you, man. I had an absolute blast on the podcast, and I'm really honored to get an invite to be able to speak on here. But then also, I'm just really happy that you're kind of giving the people behind the scenes, the creators, the people behind the content, giving them a chance to voice their opinions and show their background, because that does mean a lot for us.
Yep,
So
that's the whole point. I want people to be able to see like who's driving all of this as a whole. So yeah, I appreciate you, man. I appreciate the kind words as well. I do this just because I like to do it. It's fun, and it gives other people different perspectives and experiences. But yeah, guys, overall, for whoever's listening to this, I appreciate you guys listening to us and taking the time to hear Patrick's story. Podcast air every Sunday. The time differs just because of how we record. However, it will be out on Sunday on YouTube and Spotify, so you can check it out there. The Content Workshop is the name of it on YouTube and Spotify. But thank you all so much for listening. I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Patrick, you have any final words you want to say?
man, appreciate your time. Thank you guys for listening. If you made it this far.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much, and we will talk to you guys later on the next Content Workshop. Thanks, guys.